since you started already from SQE2, let's talk about, and it's also failed my first attempt after completing LPC. I remember that stress, and you actually start doubting yourself. But that's not about that, isn't it? If you could share a few tips and maybe something that may help people to avoid this kind of mistakes, and pass on the fast attempt.
Yeah, definitely. I'll come back to what I said earlier is like, don't underestimate the exam. Yes, it is a practical exam, but the SRA want you to do it the SRA's way. And your training might sometimes hinder that because the SRA are testing you on a specific set of marking criteria. And depending on your practice area, you might not neatly fit into that, or at least your natural style of writing might not neatly fit into what an assessor is trained to look at, which is a little bit different than maybe the sort of to the point pragmatic communication that I was used to working in financial services, where you don't need to go into as much detail to motivate your decision, basically. So I'd say, yeah, don't underestimate the exam. Always focus on the marking criteria. And this is equally applicable for SQE1 and SQE2. I think diversifying your materials, your study materials, but also your mock materials. And with the mocks, I think helped me turn my first performance weakness into my strength was help from you and Ollie. And just having you to objectively assess me, and also having access to the recordings myself, which is not something that I'd done before because I thought it was a bit cringy. But that's also something that you learn to work through, and just genuinely becoming comfortable with listening to your voice, watching yourself speak. And that's how I think I was able to go from literally a 0 in my first attempt at SQE2 to all fives. And then on written mocks, I think that in my first attempt, I probably spent a little bit too much time doing multiple choice questions because I was really comfortable with them. I loved them. I aced SQE1. And I thought that was quite good. And I was under the false impression that I was actually learning, which I was. If you asked me a question and you gave me a couple of options, I was able to answer. But the SQE is not like that. The SQE tests active recall under extreme time pressures. And that's what probably the biggest tweak that I did in my mocks for the written exams. I recreated from pretty much from the very beginning when I started studying for the resit. I basically emulated the exam. So when it came to the exam, it felt just like another mock, having done it for close to 2 months. But it was obsessive. I didn't have a life for 2 months, which is, I'm not recommending that, by the way. But it's what I felt I needed to sort of get to the ramp up really quickly in run up to the exam, because I didn't have a job. I really wanted to sort of qualify as quickly as possible, and retaking the exam while studying part time would ended up just extending the wait even more.